Hey guys, I completed another game for my October gaming marathon. I keep ending up choosing really short games. I went with another short game, and this time Silent Hill Origins for the PS2. This game was originally a PSP game. I haven't played the PSP version. I only had access to the PS2 version, so that's the version I played. Obviously, because it's based on a PSP, it's a port of a PSP game. The graphics aren't so great, and I'll get to that later. But this is actually one of two Silent Hill games I've yet to play, Downpour being the other one. I don't know when I'll play that. I'm waiting for it to get really cheap. I haven't seen it at a price yet that I want to get it. There's kind of a mixed reception on that game, but it's generally considered to probably be the best Silent Hill game since Silent Hill 4. Now Silent Hill. I really love this series. It's definitely my favorite survival horror series, and I think a part of it has to do with the formula. It hasn't really changed much, since the first one. But it's a formula that I think is very fun. And Origins kind of has that same formula. Now this was the first Silent Hill game developed by a non-Japanese team, Climax Studios. I think they're in Europe. I'm not too sure on that, but. You can feel it. The big difference between this and the first four Silent Hill games, to me, is the atmosphere. It's lacking. Even though it has like the same kind of tone, you're going through, a nightmare world, and then kind of like not really the real world, but a more normal world. And that all feels the same. And a lot of this game is really grimy and disgusting looking, but it just doesn't feel the same as those first three games. The fourth one had its own kind of tone, but it still felt like Silent Hill to me. The atmosphere was still kind of there, especially in the room portions. But this game is definitely lacking that certain atmosphere. I'll start with the story. This is obviously kind of like an origin story to the first Silent Hill game, and I want to talk about the Silent Hill series at length. I think I'm going to do like a review series, like I did with the Zelda games, once I finally get around to Downpour, because I really love the Silent Hill games. But the first game, I'll admit, I don't like the story that much. To me, Silent Hill 2 had the best storyline in the series, and that's because it was kind of its own contained thing. It was a very personal story, whereas a lot of the other Silent Hill games are kind of connected to one another, and there's like kind of this overarching storyline, and this is kind of like the origin story to that first game, and a lot of it has to do with demons and a god and a lot of different supernatural elements, and I'm not really big into that kind of thing, and I think it's kind of, I don't know, it takes a lot from like movies and stuff like that, and it just, I don't know, I've never been a huge fan of the Silent Hill storyline, the overarching storyline. And it's kind of the same with this game. Basically, you play as Travis. Now, he's a trucker, and he basically finds himself in Silent Hill. He finds a burning building and a girl. He rescues a girl from there, and he kind of wakes up, and he doesn't know what's happened to him after he rescues this girl from the fire. So he kind of explores the town for this girl, and as you're exploring, pieces of his past are kind of unlocked slowly but surely, and you're kind of trying to figure out what's this girl mean to Travis, and that's all I want to spoil, but it certainly gets interesting at points, and I do like the ending I got. I got the good ending. I know there's a bad ending and a UFO ending, which those are always funny, but I liked how the ending turned out, and the story generally keeps you going, although a lot like with a lot of Silent Hill games, it's not really based on cutscenes. It's a lot of indirect kind of storytelling where you're picking up notes scattered throughout the game and reading them to kind of get a good backstory. Because the cutscenes are generally uninteresting, the dialogue is very uninteresting, and Travis as a character I thought was really boring. He's just, a lot of the things he says just really made me laugh, and he's just, I don't know, he's just kind of a boring character, unlike, James Sutherland in Silent Hill 2. Like, he was a fascinating character, whereas here, Travis is kind of boring. You don't meet too many other side characters in this game either, but from the people you do meet, they're kind of uninteresting as well. I don't know, to me the story kind of took a backseat in this one compared to a lot of other Silent Hill games. But, I don't know, the storyline, it's okay. It's similar with the Silent Hill 1 and 3 to me, whereas they're not bad, but they're nothing compared to Silent Hill 2. Visually, though, a port of a PSP game, of course, so it doesn't look that great. It's very grainy, like I guess it should be, but it's the worst Silent Hill game I've seen visually. I gotta say. But because I'm not really a graphics horror, it didn't really bother me too much. Um, but sound design was excellent. You just as typical with Silent Hill games, the soundtrack here is done by the guy. I don't know his name. I'm really bad with Japanese, but the same guy who did Silent Hill 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's an excellent soundtrack here. Some of it you might think doesn't fit with the game, but it kind of does in a weird way. A very unique soundtrack here, and I really enjoyed it. The sound design's amazing too. The sound effects are creepy. You kind of hear things, from all around you. The monster effects are really great. There's like this really clangy, loud, ominous kind of sound effect when you enter like the nightmare world, which is really kind of creepy. The sound effects I think add a lot more to the atmosphere of this game than anything else, but really from an audio standpoint, fantastic. Now the gameplay, it's your typical Silent Hill. You kind of have the town as your kind of hub world. You're using your map to kind of figure out where you need to be. You have kind of almost dungeons, like a hospital or a sanitarium, and you kind of make your way through these locations, kind of try opening locked doors and solving puzzles. But the interesting thing with this one is you can actually enter the nightmare world at your own will by touching different mirrors throughout the game. And you kind of have to use that to solve puzzles, which was actually kind of neat. I kind of enjoyed that. The thing with the Silent Hill games, even though the formula hasn't changed, I still love just kind of exploring these environments, looking for weapons and items, and looking at your map. And the map system in Resident Evil, Silent Hill is genius. I still think to this day, where once you open a locked door, you've been somewhere you've already been to, it will mark it on your map. It's a really great map system. It's one of the most easiest map systems I've had to deal with. I really love it. Ever since the beginning, it's been a great system, and I don't think they ever really need to change it. It's one of those things I wish the Resident Evil games had, and a lot of survival horror games for that matter. I don't know why they don't just borrow from the Silent Hill games, but so gameplay's kind of the same in that regard in terms of what you're doing. The puzzles themselves, I actually liked the majority of them. They weren't, they didn't have me scrambling for a walkthrough. They were very logical. They made sense, and they were kind of fun to figure out, with the exception of the final puzzle in the game. If you guys have played this, it's one of those puzzles where you have to find very specific information to figure it out, and it's in very specific locations in this last dungeon area. It's one of those things where I completely forgot that I had seen these numbers that you needed to figure out this combination. And when I read online to figure out what I had to do, I was just like, wow, I would have never figured that out. Like, it's one of those things that without a walkthrough, I would have been stuck for ages. It was really what they expected you to do and how to figure this particular puzzle out was really, I think, overreaching. It was ridiculous. Other than that, though, I liked the puzzles. The combat, on the other hand, this was a step back from Silent Hill 4, in my opinion. The combat's very basic still. You kind of hold it's R1 button, then you press A button X button, rather, to attack with your melee weapons and your firearms. Firearms worked fine. It's the melee weapons. I found like the enemies were they could hit you a lot easier in this game, and they throw tons at you in this game, way more than any other Silent Hill game, especially towards the end of the game, and it just really got annoying. And your weapons in this game break after maybe 3 to 5 hits, and you're getting all these weapons constantly, like clubs and like filing cabinets and poles and stuff like that. And you can carry like 50 at a time, which doesn't make any sense to me because it's like so unrealistic that Travis can carry like shit tons of items, yet every time he uses one they have to break. I don't know. I think they really should have stuck with like 2 and 3's combat system. Like, I thought the combat system in those games was fine. A lot of people complain about it, but I don't know. I thought it was perfectly fine. But here, I felt like it was a step back. It was really clumsy, along with the camera in this game, where it's not a fully controllable camera. It's a static camera constantly throughout the game, and that makes it so that you can't see where the enemies are a lot of the time. So they'll just hit you out of nowhere, and you have no way of avoiding it. It really got frustrating towards the end of the game. So it was a shame how that was a step back. But yeah, gameplay overall, it's your typical Silent Hill. It's not, the atmosphere is lacking. I find, but there still are a few freaky moments. The enemy designs I thought were quite good in this game. Instead of Pyramid Head, you have the Butcher character, which is he's kind of freaky. You don't see him too often. He's actually probably the hardest boss fight in the game. It's typical boss fights in this game where if you don't have firearms, you're gonna probably get your ass kicked. They're quite challenging without firearms, so hoard your ammo for these guns and just use your melee weapons on the normal enemies. But overall, Silent Hill Origins, I was actually kind of surprised how much I was going to enjoy. I enjoyed this game. I think it's probably the weakest Silent Hill game I've played alongside Shattered Memories. I know I'm probably going to get some hate for that one, but I wasn't a fan of that game. I'll talk about it later in another. Well, I wouldn't say I wasn't a fan of it. I just thought it was like decent, which is what I think of Silent Hill Origins. It's a decent game. I enjoyed most of it, to be honest, because it was a Silent Hill game. I mean, I don't really want the formula to change too much because I think as it is, it's still a pretty fun formula. It's the rare survival horror game that where the puzzles and exploration just don't bother me. It never feels like I'm getting bored. It's very strange, but I don't know. If you're a hardcore Silent Hill fan, I mean, you haven't played this, definitely check it out. If you're not too into horror games, maybe go with Silent Hill 2 or 3 first. And if you like the series as a whole, then go with this one. It's not as bad as I was expecting, considering it's not a Japanese, it's not Team Silent doing this game. But anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.